Hi guys. My PowerPoint is great, but I decided last minute that I wanted to change this up and kind of make this a little bit of a discussion. So I think I'm gonna essentially, this is how we'll start. I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself and how I got to Planned Parenthood, and then tell you how you can get involved with our Gen Action work on your campuses if you're not already, and then just open it up for questions. Cool? Do we have any Gen Action members in here? No? None? Y'all do better. So yeah, that's baby Monica. I was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 1992, best year ever. And I immigrated here when I was about 3 or 4 years old, grew up in Cary, North Carolina, and I went to school at UNC Charlotte. But more so on my personal story and how I got to Planned Parenthood. When I was a senior in high school, my spring semester, about 2 months before graduating, I got pregnant and decided I did not want to continue with the pregnancy. So I reached out to Planned Parenthood, and they didn't have a clinic in my area, but they connected me to a local clinic in Raleigh, North Carolina. And so that was my very first touch with Planned Parenthood. I was able to get safe care at a place where the nurses were amazing, but the doctor was problematic. So I think you guys should also think about, if you're ever talking to someone that may be experiencing a situation, experiencing a pregnancy that they do not want to carry to term, recommend them getting a doula or going to a facility that does have doulas, because doulas are necessary, and I should not have had to deal with that doctor. And if I had a doula, it would have been a completely different experience. But my nurses were amazing. And so essentially that was my very first touch with Planned Parenthood. And that kind of opened up my mind a little bit more, because I am Christian and I grew up in the Christian church my entire life. But I think before that situation, I never thought about whether I was okay with abortion or not, or really how I felt about it at all. But once I had to deal with it for myself, I think I had to decide what my relationship with my religion looked like and how I was going to let it influence the decision that I was making. And I think a lot of Christians like me that go through similar situations, I can't speak for everybody, but I think some that do go through similar situations have to face that. And I think dealing with that is probably the hardest part of the situation, rather than the procedure itself. And so when I got to school, I worked on electoral work. I did Obama in 12, did some mayor races in Charlotte, and then went on to do the Hillary race last year. And so that'll take us here. To my present relationship with Planned Parenthood, and really how I see myself connecting with this conference in particular. While working on the Hillary campaign, it was great. It was not always me in a minion costume though. There were some crazy, horrible days. So I think most of you in here are college students. Can any of you raise your hands if you have a special preacher that comes to your campus and tells you that you are going to hell? Yeah, I feel that. When I was in school at Charlotte, we had a special guy that came to campus, and for some reason, the one day that I went to actually listen to him, he wanted to use me as his example and tell people that I was this great person. And I was like, but sir, you don't know me. And he was just like, well, she's covered, because I had jeans and a t-shirt on that day. She's covered, she's dressed modestly. And I was like, well, I can appear to be this modest person, but you actually don't know who I am, so please don't use me as an example. While me and him did practice the same religion, I did not want him to use me as a tool to hurt other people. So that those pastors are a problem. And last year, the preacher at App State, the campus that I was working on, decided that he wanted to target me, and I was at my little table. And so his main reasons for targeting me was He had a problem with me working on the Clinton campaign because Clinton hates black people, and I was black. That was one. First, he called me African American, and I had to tell them that I'm not African American. I identify as black because I am solely African. And then it was also a problem because I had a Harry Potter book on my table. I think that's when things, got a little bit tricky because I'm a Hufflepuff, and I really felt targeted when he came for Harry Potter. Like, I just don't understand. Do we have any Gryffindors in the house? Any Slytherin? Hufflepuff? Yes. What's the other one? Ravenclaw. Oh, so many Ravenclaws. That is amazing. I don't think I know any Ravenclaws in my personal life, so that's so cool. But yeah, so he decided he wanted to attack me on those things, and then he told me that I was going to hell, and when I told him I was a Christian, that made the entire thing very bad. So I think the reason I decided to work with Planned Parenthood, mainly after the election, was because I feel like in spaces that are perceived as very secular, I like to insert myself and make people realize that not all Christians are like those campus pastors. Not all of us are gonna damn people to hell. It's not my place to tell you how to live your life. That's number one, how I feel. Do you? But at the same time, I'm always going to try to give you all a positive view of what a religious person looks like, because majority of us are okay and accepting of everyone's views, right? And so yeah, that's why I work at Planned Parenthood, got an abortion, and I hate mean ass pastors that damn everyone to hell. That's why I fight for Planned Parenthood, and even more now. The political climate that we're in is like extremely scary, and it's not safe, especially being an immigrant, being a person of color, being a woman in this environment. It's just not safe at all. And for me, self-care looks like just fighting my damnedest to make sure that we get this man out of office, no matter what that looks like, and making sure that we keep fighting to get positive people into office, people that are not going to further split this country, because it is divided as hell, and to say that it's not is to be naive. And so I just think we really need some positive people in office, and I'm gonna fight every day to make sure that Planned Parenthood stays open and that we can continue to have these safe clinics where everyone is welcome. And yeah, that's why I'm here. And so if you don't already follow any of our social media handles, shameless plug, feel free to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. Our Snapchat is popping, okay? It's everything. And I haven't seen too much of our Instagram, but seriously, all of these handles are amazing. And if you go to www.ppaction.org, you can look up and see if you have a chapter on your campus. I know some of our chapters already partner with SSA on their campuses, but if you don't already, reach out. We would love to host events with you all and just continue to build these relationships. That's it. That's all I've got for you. Any questions? Yeah.
So one of the can you talk a little bit about interacting with particularly Black folks to talk about eugenics of Margaret Sanger and how you enter that conversation?
Mm-hmm.
How you talk about Planned Parenthood in its current state?
Yeah. So.
Folks that don't know.
Yeah.
She and I guess.
So yeah, Margaret Sanger is the founder was the founder of Planned Parenthood, and she was extremely problematic. She was racist as fuck. Just like, that's just like, just throwing it out there. She just was. But I think the way I go about having the conversation, whenever anyone does bring up Margaret Sanger and the eugenics of Black people, I think, number one, acknowledging it, that it happened, like, don't write it off. But also, Planned Parenthood has grown so much in the past 100 years. And if it hadn't, I wouldn't be here. So I think just acknowledging the fact that it did happen and that she was very problematic, but also being cognizant of this amazing organization that she did build, and making sure that all of our work going forward is extremely inclusive and is centered around queer women of color, period. Always, always, always should be centered around queer women of color, because those are the people that are at all of the intersections. So I think that's really how I deal with it. Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing that I've read about with Planned Parenthood is that due to laws and stuff, it can be very difficult for women of low income to receive abortions due to having to travel a long distance and find childcare and take days off of work, and sometimes it requires multiple visits depending on the state. What is there that can, is there anything that can remedy that besides, political change, or are there organizations that can help with that?
So, I just don't know how to answer it. I can say that someone personally came to me with the situation as well. They're in North Carolina, and in North Carolina, you do have to go in for you have to have a counseling session first, because you can't make your own decision, right? And then you have to wait, I think it's 72 hours before you can go ahead with the procedure after the counseling. And if you miss that 72-hour appointment, you have to start over with the counseling. And so I honestly, other than political change, I'm not aware of any organizations that are able to help with that situation, just because it's different in every single state. And I think with I think you said something about not being able to afford abortions. The National Abortion Fund actually does help a lot with that. I know when I went in for my abortion, I was paying out of pocket, and it was $300-something. Thank God I just graduated and got all this graduation money, so I did not have to talk to my parents about it. And I was 18, it didn't matter. But I was further along from the last time that I had went in. And so I actually ended up having to pay more, and I did not have that cash, so I was going to leave. But my nurse called the National Abortion Fund, and they supplemented the difference. So the National Abortion Fund is amazing. If you can, donate to them, because it's an amazing cause, and they help a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna throw out the National Abortion Fund as another, but also there are a lot of local abortion funds too, and particularly in different states. In my state, we have the Southeastern Abortion Fund, and they ARC, Access to Reproductive Care, and they help fund so many abortions. They work, and a lot of these local organizations work with the National Abortion Fund, so you can find them in your state. But it's really nice to be able to give money directly. I was in a meeting once, and we literally raised money for someone's abortion right in that meeting. They were tweet it out, and then it was literally in an hour, someone was able to get their abortion, and that work happens right then and there to combat. And yeah, I feel I had a question about what Planned Parenthood and how the work of Planned Parenthood is moving more from reproductive rights to reproductive justice, because I feel like if we do the history, like Planned Parenthood hasn't always been on the side of reproductive justice.
Right.
Yeah.
So how are we moving towards reproductive justice is what you're asking? Yeah. So I think from what I've seen from being in the organization, I just started with the organization actually in March, but what I've seen while being here is that we're being very intentional about the work that we're doing and about the goals that we're setting, and making sure that we are being inclusive of all communities. And so in particular, like with my role in particular, I hold expanding our PP Gen Action program onto HBCUs and MSIs, because while there are existing chapters on those HBCUs and MSIs, it's not representative at all of the number of schools that are in this country. So just making sure that we are pulling in those students of color and really investing in them and making sure that they are sitting at these decision-making tables, because if they're not able to make the decisions that are going to help it be, not help, but if they're not able to be a part of making the decisions that are likely going to be affecting them directly, then it doesn't make sense. There shouldn't be a group of white men or white women sitting around a table making decisions that are going to affect people of color. So really making sure that we're uplifting those queer voices and uplifting students of color within all of our leadership programs, for sure. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
Can you give a few examples of what kinds of activities or work SSA groups might be able to do on campus in relation to PP's work or with a PP generation group?
Yeah. Well, I think it can look like anything really. I don't know too much about what SSA does. SSA does, like, just in general. I don't know too much about the organization. I'm very new to this. But I do know that a lot of, like, our PP Gen chapters in general do a lot of different things that can go from trying to change policies on campus, like making bathrooms gender neutral. Like we could definitely all work to get that done. Getting tampons into bathrooms, and making them free for students. What else is there? I know there's one school where you're not allowed to have sex in dorms. Like, that's an actual policy. I don't know how that's enforced. I don't know how they're doing that, but I know that, like, that should be a campaign that's being held on campus. Like, Planned Parenthood should be backing that, like SSA should be backing that, everybody should be backing that, because it's none of your business what people are doing in their dorms. So, I mean, it's open. I think there's literally anything that you guys can do. For sure, at the heart of our work, we are a reproductive rights organization, but we are working to be more intersectional for sure. So I think it can look like anything. Yeah. Anybody else? You good? Okay. Now you have to say it now.
I was just talking about how, like, even most campuses, like, even if they don't even allow sex, they don't even allow sex toys on my campus. You know, like, they don't allow.
I don't. Yeah.
Right, I'm gonna come through with all the sex toys.
Where do you go to school?
Jacksonville State.
Oh, okay, yeah, we'll be through.
Isn't it the whole state of Alabama? Aren't sex toys illegal in the entire state?
I don't think so. They have love stuff, you know, but you know.
Oh, we got Alabama.
That's very interesting.
I mean, I guess they, like, whenever, especially Yeah, their friend is dorm check.
And they go through your things?
Well, they can't like look through your things, but if you have something that looks like it out, they're allowed to be like,
You can be evicted.
yeah.
Right.
Oh my God.
And that's what I was saying. I was like,
They need your help.
I mean, I don't know why I'm acting shocked. I'm not shocked, but that's crazy. Yeah. I think we have a PP Gen chapter at Jackson State, actually.
well, this is Jacksonville State.
Jacksonville State.
Yeah, there's not anything near Jacksonville State.
That may be a place to
We try.
Wow. That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think if there are no more questions, am I right? Yeah? Okay. I think the only thing I'd like to end this with is I think this whole year I've tried to be as vocal as I can about all of the crap that's going on in this country, and just making people like really my family members that are, because we're Congolese, I think we've created, like, even within Raleigh, North Carolina, there's a huge Congolese population, number one. And so we've created this huge community, and we are very disconnected to what's going on in the country. Like, we're very disconnected unless it has something to do with immigration. We're very disconnected. And so I think I've done everything I can to make people aware that just because it's not about immigration at the moment doesn't mean that immigration isn't up next, but immigration was definitely like number one on the damn chopping block, right? So I think just make the people around you that are really just disconnecting themselves from what's going on because they aren't really being affected by it every day, just make them aware of what's going on, because I think it's the people that are unplugged that are the problem. It's not the people that are actively engaging in this, and it's not the people that are like the conservative right. Like, they're obviously the problem, but it's also the people that should be on our side that are just completely staying silent and aren't doing anything about it. So like, make them stand up, make them say something, because for them to sit silent, and then if Planned Parenthood health centers do get shut down, and then all of these people lose health care, and then they have something to say after the fact, that's what will piss people off. It's just like, where were you when we were fighting to keep our health centers open? Where were you when we were fighting to make sure that our families didn't get deported? Where were you when we were fighting to keep our black men alive? Where were you? And black women, where were you? Like, where were you when we were fighting for this? Where were you when all the black women were voting? Where the fuck were you when we were trying to keep the orange man out of office? So it's just like, I don't say his name. Like, just make sure that you are engaging those people in conversation. And I know it can be tedious, but make sure that they know what is going on in this world, and that really make them uncomfortable. Like, make them feel like they have no choice but to get involved, because we should all be involved, because we all have to live here, and it's not cool for only a portion of us to be doing the work. Yeah.